Welcome back for another video brought to you by FloatingCottonCandy.com regarding RoboLabs Robo JetFloss vertical cotton candy machines. Specifically, this is a follow-up video to a review I did of the 4-wheel cart that is made and designed specifically for the Robo JetFloss cotton candy machine. Love the cart, watch the video. Minor improvement, however, I came up with that some of the cart owners might be interested in. One of the many features of the cart is that it comes with a couple of interesting accessory hooks, one of which is to hold a cup so that you can soak sticks, making them easier to float floss. Now these hooks, there's one for each side. One holds the snow catcher tool and one is designed to hold a cup so that you can fill it with water and then put soak sticks in it. And two things I've done with this is I put a little magnetic backing to this, because I found when I used it the first couple of times that every time I'd lift up the snow catcher tool or I'd insert or remove the cup, these would flap a little bit on the metal. It's not a big deal, but mildly distracting. So I bought some one-sided, basically what I actually used was business card magnets, where there's a laminate on one side and a magnetic other side, and that allows me to put this on the machine, and there's just enough magnetic pull that it holds snugly to the machine, keeps it from vibrating and bouncing it around. But the idea is that, again, this is a cup holder that allows you to put a cup that you have to purchase, find a big cup, set it in there, and then put a little bit of water in there. And then when you put your straws in, hold your straws, keeps the tips of them wet so that floss will better adhere when you're first starting to make your cone. Whether you're using plastic or wood, you kind of need to do that. And the system works just fine. However, for my preference, I want to indicate this is just a preference. This isn't as visually, professionally appealing as I might like, but more importantly, I like to really soak a much longer length of the material I'm working with. And even with larger cups, the best I've seen is maybe soaking 8 or 10 inches of the straw. What I like to do is soak pretty much everything except the last 6 inches of a straw. And then when I start making my cone, I put a light layer of floss along that entire length. And that means that when I make large cones, they really adhere well. If you make smaller cones, and by smaller I mean in diameter, this won't make any difference. But when you start getting into diameters of a foot or larger, that excess weight means that when you start spinning to increase the size, the weight fights the adhesion to the straw, and eventually, and you may have had this happen, you'll see that the straw will start to spin inside of the cone itself. So the more of the surface you can get a strong adhesion, the greater you can fight that. And I've, on plastic and straws made of bamboo, I've made cones, you know, I suppose that would probably be 2.5 feet in diameter. And as long as you got good adhesion, you can do that. So if your tendency is to make narrower cones, this isn't an issue. For me, it is. So what I decided was, well, I can't find a cup that's long enough without exceeding the size that I'm allowed to hold the cup. So having previously made, and if you've read the blog or watched the video, I've made custom soak stands that allow me to soak my sticks quite deep. So I simply applied the same idea, and I've designed a custom soak tube. I'll come back in just a moment, show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how to make it. So now we're back, and if you take a look at the cart, you'll see that this is the custom soak tube that I've made instead of using simply a small cup, and these are the same straws, and you'll see that they soak much deeper. Now I don't fill the water right to the top, I fill it to about here, and this means that I am in fact able to wet and soak everything but that last 6 inches of my handle. I find it much more convenient, gives me the depth that I want, and frankly, I like the aesthetics of it better. I'm not sure that everyone would agree. You certainly don't have to agree, but it works for me. And it's about an hour project and $20 worth of materials. So if you like the idea, there's not a lot to it. Naturally, I did it in the pinks because it matches the cart and the company colors I work with, but there's no reason to say you couldn't make it in solid colors or any type of design pattern you want. The way that I've made it is that it can be removed from the hook. I put a threaded piece on top. That's not actually necessary. I could have made this glued on, but I figured, well, at some point, maybe part of it would chip or need to be broken, repainted. So I like the idea of being able to simply unthread the two pieces so that I could remove the hook from the cart and not have that integrated. But this could be glued on because I could always cut the piece off as well. But understand, I don't thread and unthread this other than for the demonstration purpose of this video. I just take the whole thing off, dump the water out, and then throw it in my storage bins and carry it that way. So at the end of an event, pull the straws out, dump the water, throw the whole tube in my storage bin. It travels like that. Time to set up again. Take it out, fill it with water, hang the hook on, drop it in place, and now put in enough sticks to make 10, 20, 30, 40 cones, and then simply refill it with more. So it works just the way a cup would, except that I don't take the cup in and out. I take the whole unit on and off. So pretty straightforward. And the other thing, of course, is when you're working with something this heavy in the size, now I find I don't really need the magnetic adhesion on the back either, because the weight of itself keeps it down pretty well. So how do I make it? As you've probably seen if you watch the soak tube production, I find that plumbing PVC to be exceptionally useful and handy. And this is just essentially 4 pieces glued together and then decorated. So it's 3-inch Schedule 40. You go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, Ace, anywhere that sells hardware. And I've got an end cap. And most of the bigger stores will sell shorter pieces. You may have some of this around the house if you're a handy person. If not, you can buy a pre-cut piece like this. And then on top of that, and here's where I made the choice to use 2 separate pieces where I would in fact then be able to thread together the hook. And I've got a male adapter and a female, and that's it. So it's just 4 pieces, and 3 of them are glued together. This part glues onto here, this part glues onto here, and so that's my top and bottom. And those, of course, being plumbing, it's easy to make it watertight. You just use the same glue you'd use if you were doing actual household plumbing. This part just threads on top. Now, if you, I don't know if you can see, I'll come in a little closer here, show you. This is fairly unattractive to look at from the onset because you have all these projections for both manufacturing and for putting spanner wrenches on, which plumbers find useful, but we don't need for purposes of making soak tubes. So I just took a orbital saw and some aggressive, I think I used 80 grit sandpaper, and it took me all of maybe 5 minutes to clean each of these up. So these odd protrusions that are here from manufacturing and the spanner wrench grips, I just rough sanded them off. And I didn't bother finishing them, make them look pretty, because nobody's going to be looking very close. And of course, once you put on some paint, it kind of disappears anyway. So I sanded all of these off, and then base coat of primer made for plastic. Lightly sand the shiny parts first so even the primer holds better. After that, I find I get the best look by painting everything white again, which seems kind of funny to go from a white tube to a gray primer and then go back to white, but that's the way I do it. So paint it all white, and from there, what I use is, if you want to follow the color scheme of cotton candy and pink and the color the cart comes in, which you certainly don't have to, I find I get the best effect by going on top of the white with just little splotches, little dots of pink and of red. If I just do pink or just red, it doesn't really look quite the same. So if you look here, I don't know if you can tell or not because of the video quality, but there's pink splotches and red splotches. And so I'll just do a few of each, and then I'll do some rough pass-by sprays, very not triggered depressed on the spray can, but just sort of splotchy, almost like accidental spraying, which you wouldn't want to do on a real quality project. So don't depress the trigger all the way and go by very quickly and try and get some splatter. And then I'll touch over some of the pink with red and touch over some of the red with pink. So I don't want a uniform look here at all. Personally, that's my preference. Again, doesn't mean you have to agree. But I mean, you're really talking an hour. The only thing I had to do was cut the pre-made tube down to a shorter length because the tube, at least in the length that was available at my local store, is too tall. It would actually hit the ground, and it's longer than the straws. So that wouldn't do any good. And that's it. $20 in PVC. The paint obviously extra, but I had the paint from previous projects sitting around. The only other thing I did was I added a little felt pad to the bottom here so that it wouldn't bang on the cabinet. And because this is not tightly snugged down on the threading, I can easily turn this so that the felt is touching the cabinet, and that keeps it resting nicely. It doesn't bang, it doesn't rattle. So this is what I'm calling a custom soak tube, and that does the job just perfectly for me. Totally a accessory, completely optional. Can't blame the manufacturer for not including it. The cup works fine for most, but if you want to dress up your rig a little bit, you like the idea of soaking more of the tube, it's a 1-hour project at best, and well worth it. And again, not that this is necessarily important to everyone, but I think it enhances the look of the cart. Rather than just having a white or beige or random color cup hanging off the side. It almost looks like it was designed to go with the cart. Now I'm biased there. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it really looks like a sore thumb sticking out, but it works for me. It's very functional, and I hope some of you find that to be a useful addition and improvement to your cart. And with that, I will thank you for watching the video. Remind you once again, if you like these types of secrets and tips and little advanced pro techniques, be sure to visit my site, floatingcottoncandy.com. There's a secret page not publicly available called the Robo JetBoss Success Guide. If you have access, you know about it. If you don't, fill out the form, just ask me for the link, I'll send it to you. I keep it private simply because there's a lot of research and effort that goes into that page, not only creating it, but keeping all of the links and products and things updated. Most everything on there has nothing to do with what I sell. It's just what I've learned, what I've researched, what I found, and I don't really want to just share it with members of the public in general. But it's for Robo JetFloss owners and people that are contemplating investing and becoming Robo JetFloss bosses. So with that, I'll thank you again for watching the video and hope to see you back soon.